powerful King Saber will Excalibur your enemies, and today I'm gonna tell you how to build her best. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So what does the almighty Saber desire in terms of relics? Well, you're ideally gonna want to go for 4-piece Wave Strider. The 4-piece tailors well to her ultimate-based playstyle, and she also gets some free crit damage. It's her definitive best-in-slot pick, and you should farm for it as soon as possible. Genius of Brilliant Stars ends up working fine if you're fighting a quantum weak enemy, but it's more situational, so I personally prefer Wave Strider Captain thanks to the consistency. Scholar Lost in Erudition can also end up being a very competitive alternative, since it also benefits her ultimate. I'd say if you have a really good Scholar set, then you don't have to go out of your way to farm an entirely new Wave Strider set, but I'd say it's worth the upgrade if your Scholar pieces aren't all that impressive. In terms of her 2-piece String and Orb, you're gonna want to go for 2-piece Salsado, thanks to, you guessed it, the ultimate damage increase. 2-piece Glomoff can also end up working very nicely for her, because typically speaking, Saber is always going to be above 135 speed. Space Sealing Station and Rutilant Arena can work as perfectly fine 2-piece alternatives. As for Saber's main stats, simple. Go for Speed Boots, Crit % Body, Wind % Orb, and an Attack % Rope. A pretty standard setup for a carry. You're ideally going to be using Speed Boots so that you can speed tune with your Action Advance support. Everything else is pretty standard practice for a simple hyper carry. As for Saber's stat goals, simple. Go for 60 to 220 crit rate and damage on Sig, 60 to 180 crit rate on damage on Eon, 2400 attack on Sig, and 2200 attack on Eon. And when it comes to speed, go for 135, assuming that your Action Advance support is at 134. Otherwise, if they're any higher than that, always add +1 to whatever your Action Advance support speed is, and don't go above 140. Saber has quite a few nice picks when it comes to her relics, but ideally you want to go for Wave Strider. Otherwise, Scholar is a perfectly fine alternative. Just go for whatever ends up having the best stats for you. And when it comes to her 2 pieces, they're all relatively close to one another, so once again just go for what you have. A powerful knight like Saber is going to need the right light cones to do the job, so what'll those be? None other than a Thankless Coronation. Not only does this dump her with a ton of crit damage, but she gets plenty of attack as well. Not to mention a little bit of energy restoration, which is really nice when you consider that she has the highest max energy out of any character in the game. Absolutely fantastic light cone that is perfectly tailored to the needs of her kit. And our sweet, beautiful Finance light cone ends up being good on Saber too, because not only does it provide straight up Death Ignore, but she's able to yield a bunch of damage dealt increase from it. Fantastic alternative that's honestly not that far off of her signature. A Trail of Bygone Blood also ends up being really good for her. Some free crit rate, and of course, ultimate damage increase. Fantastic light cone for sure. Your most free-to-play friendly option is going to be on the Fall of an Eon. It's a pretty decent light cone for her. If you don't have access to any of her other options, then this is going to end up being your best bet. She gets plenty of free attack, and can get some free damage dealt increase whenever you weakness break enemies. However, with that being said, it's a little bit of an inconsistent buff. Either way, this is 100% going to be your best choice if you don't have anything else. Other destruction light cones are viable on her, but with that being said, if they're below Fall of an Eon, then I don't particularly think they're as worth using, seeing as a perfectly free-to-play friendly option is available to her. Either way, there's an option for basically everyone. Yet who is going to be assisting this almighty knight? Well, the absolute best Action Advance support that you can use with her would be Sunday. This is because of his ability to provide energy to her, which is really valuable. Not to mention all of the other excellent buffs that he's able to provide, such as damage dealt increase and extra crit damage. If you don't have access to Sunday, then in his place, you can use RMC as an Action Advance support. Trailblazer's true damage buffs end up being really nice for Saber, so it's actually quite a solid alternative pick. Bronya's also a perfectly viable Action Advance support. She won't provide the energy that Sunday does, but she still gets the job done just fine. In terms of your next slot, you're ideally going to want to use Tribby. She's excellent for all the usual reasons that you would expect. Providing res pen, providing her own personal damage, putting vulnerability on enemies, and just being an excellent character all around. Tingyan can also serve as a really nice budget option because she's able to provide energy with her ultimate. And Ruame exists as a permanently available free option from the shop if you don't have any of the other options that I mentioned. In terms of sustains, you can use basically any of them, but Ho-Ho is going to be the most ideal one because she's able to provide energy regeneration via her ultimate. But if you don't have access to her, don't worry about it, because pretty much any other character is going to be just fine as well. Example teams include Saber, Sunday, Tribby, Ho-Ho, Excalibur, RMC, Ruame, Sustain, Saber, Bronya, Tingyan, Sustain. You get the idea. Yet how does Saber work? Well, her unenhanced basic attack will deal one simple wind strike to a single enemy. Nothing much else to add here. As for Saber's skill, she'll deal some wind blast damage, and then generate herself 3 core resonance. Core Resonance is something that she can consume to give herself energy. If she already has Core Resonance when you use her skill, then she's going to consume it and give herself energy. As for Saber's ultimate, she'll deal massive wind damage to all enemies on field, and then deal some minor bounce damage after that. She will then enhance her next basic attack. This enhanced basic attack will have her generate 2 Core Resonance and deal wind damage to all enemies. And if there are 2 or less enemies on field whenever she does this, then she's going to deal some additional wind damage. As for Saber's talent, this is what stores her Core Resonances. Whenever she enters combat, she'll gain 1 Core Resonance point, and whenever any teammate uses an ultimate, she gains 3 of these, and consuming Core Resonance is going to generate her energy. As for Saber's Ascension passives, simple. Her A2 is going to give her a free 20% crit rate, while also giving her the ability to recover skill points. She does this if she can fully regenerate her energy via her Core Resonance, and she immediately takes action afterwards. Her A4 helps out with her energy situation. She's able to accumulate up to 120 overflow energy, meaning that you're able to store some excess, and after you use her ult, she's going to store that excess energy, and can use it for her next ult. And whenever she enters battle, if she doesn't have any energy to start with, then she gains 60%. As for Saber's A6, whenever she uses her skill, she's going to increase her own crit damage by 50% for 2 turns, and for every point of Core Resonance gained, she's going to increase her crit damage by 4%, and this can stack up to 8 times. As for Saber's trace priority, simple, go for this. Now I would like to emphasize, you ideally really want to max everything out. All of her traces are important. However, I would go about it in this particular order, because her ultimate is a really big deal. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest nuke in her entire kit, and where the main meat of her damage output lies. Her skill and talent are equally as important as one another, so I would level them both up at the same time. And while her basic attack is the lowest priority, don't neglect it, it's still important. Leveling up all of her traces is 100% going to be worth your time. Do you wish to provide this king with some gold? Then let's talk Eidolons. Her E1 increases her ult damage, which as you can imagine, yeah, that is a pretty good buff. And it also provides her with some more Core Resonance, which helps out her energy situation. I'd say this is definitely a good pickup if you plan to main Saber in the long term. It's not a necessity by any means, but I do definitely think that it's good. Her E2 will allow Saber to ignore up to 15% of a target's defense after a certain point in the battle, because for every 1 point of Core Resonance that she gains, she ignores 1% of a target's defense. And she also gets a nice damage multiplier increase for her skill. Really good E2, but once again, not necessary by any means. Her E3 leveling up her ultimate is a big deal, considering that it's such a large part of her damage output. The basic level, while it's not as relevant, is still very nice to have. Her E4 is genuinely quite strong, to be honest. Wind Res Pen is a pretty big deal. Fantastic E4, I actually think it's very valuable. You obviously don't need it, but it's a nice thing to get. Her E5 providing some extra skill and talent levels are very nice, but it's nothing groundbreaking. And then her E6, Wind Res Pen for her ultimate damage. She's now able to store even more excess energy than before, and she can give herself a free ultimate once every free ult uses. A very, very good E6. Granted, you don't need it. I would like to emphasize, as always, that she feels very complete at E0, but it's a good E6 for sure. In terms of what you should invest in for your Saber, I would pick up Sunday first, and then make sure to get her Light Cone. Everything else after that is pretty much up to you. E1 is good to get, but I wouldn't label it as a necessity by any means. Ho-Ho is also a pretty nice pickup, but I wouldn't say that you need her. She's just a nice additional upgrade. All around, I think Saber was handled pretty well. She's a strong DPS, she's a unique playstyle, and I think a pretty good job was done with her. What do you think about Saber? Does she live up to your expectations? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hopefully this video was able to get your Saber Excaliburing her enemies into the afterlife. This has been Juice, signing out, and I hope you enjoy your almighty night.